You may or may not have heard Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez speaking in Ebonics at a rally for Tennessee congressional candidate Justin Pearson. Justin Pearson, for those who don't know, is black, and AOC did her best to sound black at the rally. Listen.
Brothers and sisters, we cannot afford to leave Tennessee behind. We cannot afford to leave Kentucky behind, Alabama behind, Mississippi behind, Georgia behind, South Carolina behind. There is no country when we are split apart. About a month or two ago, we were in Montgomery, Alabama. Sister Presley and I were in Montgomery, Alabama. And one of the things that we said was that it is time for the North to roll up to the South. It is long past time that we help our brothers.
No, I can't do anymore. It is long past time for her to shut up. That's number one. But number two, look, that's racist. Okay? There's a lot of times they call the left, they call Republicans and conservatives and patriots, they call us racist for the dumbest things. If you're going to go to a rally and mock your audience, mock the black people in the audience by pretending, Sister Presley, really? In all the years that she's been in the House, has she ever referred to Congresswoman Presley as Sister Presley? No, she has not. But here's the thing, and this is why we can laugh about it. We do. We laugh. Oh, look, here's her best impersonation of Kamala Harris or Hillary Clinton, you know. And Hillary said, I ain't done being tired or whatever. I don't even remember what she said way back when. But this is a common trend, and you'll never, ever, ever, ever see a Republican candidate do that. We wouldn't do it, and if we did, we would be called racist. But when AOC does it, oh, but she's a Democrat. She can't be racist. Here's the reality. If you're a Democrat or if you know a Democrat, let them know this. This is just clear, unambiguous proof. You cannot deny it. That is racism. She is trying to not just pander, but she's insulting the intelligence and the culture of her audience, which happens to be black. I don't understand how Democrats can scream about racism while being unambiguously the most racist people in America. Who are the real racists? AOC. AOC is the real racist. And for her to even pretend like, oh, that was natural, or that's just, she was just in the heat of the moment, or what do they call it? They call it something like code signaling or something like that. They gave it some scientific term to downplay the fact that she is insulting them by mimicking them, mocking them in a racist manner. Just talk normal. That's not how you sound. You would never AOC would never in a million years speak to a white person like that, or a white audience like that, a Bronx audience. Could you imagine if she did? She'd be laughed at. But here, what is she trying to relate? No, she's not. She's talking down to the audience because she feels that she's superior to them, and she's trying to bring herself down to their level. That's her perspective, not mine. That's what she thinks. Otherwise, why in the world would you do something so stupid?
The cadet's logic is sound.
Bipartisan lawmakers urge Trump to ban Chinese seafood. This comes to us from the Epoch Times. We have the summary over at discernreport.com. In this article by Frank Fang, a bipartisan group of lawmakers is urging President Trump to ban seafood sourced by China-linked vessels or processed in China, citing forced labor, illegal fishing, and national security threats. All of those are important. I think we should throw in health concerns. I know that we don't In the Rucker household, we do not buy food that is sourced from China. The Congressional Executive Commission on China has sent a letter led by Senators Dan Sullivan and Chris Smith, and it states that Chinese seafood is criminally tainted. I like that phrase. Rare that I see a phrase manufactured in D.C. that I like. That one's pretty good. And produced through forced labor, debt bondage, and abuse in Xinjiang and Tibet. Lawmakers highlight that such imports undercut American fishermen and finance China's subsidized maritime force engaging in illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing. And they have been known for that. The Chinese Communist Party, Chinese companies, have done everything they can to abuse the waterways across the Pacific. This is their thing. They feel like they own the entire ocean. They act like it. They engage in illegal fishing, illegal whaling, illegal building of strange islands in the middle of the Pacific. It's just all sorts of strange. So kudos to members of Congress for pushing back, even if it's just about the fish. CNN blames, quote, history of saying blatantly false things about elections for speech snub. Of course, we're talking about President Trump's Thursday night speech, where CNN and multiple news outlets refused to air the actual speech, opting instead to offer commentary and to debunk it. Now, there's a very clear reason why this is absolutely positively disgusting. I'll get to that, but first let's get to this article. It's actually a summary of an article. We have it over at Discern Report. There's Caitlin Collins, who I believe represents the degradation, the destruction of CNN as a network. Believe it or not, there was a time not too long ago, 80s. Okay, I'm old enough to remember when CNN was actually kind of cool to watch. You could get world coverage all the time, and that was something that we didn't have back in my youth. So CNN was actually at one point pretty decent. Not great, but still decent compared to now. I mean, they're just trolls. They are fake news. It's funny because President Trump, let me stop right there. President Trump always talks about, calls, fake news CNN. It's true, though. It's absolutely true. That's not just, they're being negative about Trump. No, they are bald-faced liars, and they're hypocrites when it comes to what they consider to be news, what they won't cover, and what they do cover, the things they report as facts that later on turn out to not be facts. You never hear them go back and say, we were so wrong. No, they won't ever say anything like that. But let's get into the article itself. The article is by Newsbusters. Steve Malzberg reporting over there. He criticized CNN for refusing to air President Trump's primetime address on foreign election interference, blaming his quote-unquote well-documented history of saying blatantly false things about elections. CNN's Caitlin Collins justified the decision on The Source. I've never watched it. I don't even know what it is. But I guess that's what they were talking about. They didn't air President Trump's speech. They just talked about it, opting instead for analysis and context while previewing what Trump was expected to say. Collins and panelist John King dismissed the speech as ominous, focused on China, deep state conspiracies, and greatest hits, while questioning connections to election results. Now, keep something in mind. CNN, this is the same network that gave us, that promoted the Russia collusion narrative. These are the same people that were saying that Hunter Biden's laptop was Russian disinformation, that it was fake. These are the same people that told you that the vaccines were totally safe, 100% effective, or 99%, or 97%, or 92%, or 74%, or by golly, they're still get them anyway. Yeah, that's the CNN that we're talking about here. They're garbage, and they can't be trusted. But here's the takeaway. You knew all that. Okay, I'm not telling you anything new about that. But here's what's important about this particular incident. And it was Smirkonish actually came out and said basically the same thing, saying, look, if you think you're going to disagree with whatever the speech is, great. Air it. And then debunk it. Comment about it. Give your analysis. If you don't air it, but then you still try to debunk it, What you're saying is that you're the arbiter of truth. The speech from President Trump was going to be too damaging, too potentially destructive to the poor, feeble minds of the CNN audience. The CNN audience cannot be trusted by CNN's own perspective. They can't be trusted to distinguish between what's real and what's fake. They can't be trusted to think for themselves, to hear what President Trump is saying and come to a conclusion other than what's false. CNN thinks that their viewers are retarded. They must think that, because otherwise they would air it and then again counter it or agree with it. You know, hey, I got to admit, not that this would ever happen on CNN, but this is what I would love to see happen. Hey, got to admit, if what he says is true, this is important information. It really is. Got to give him credit, or we don't give him credit over at CNN, but we got to admit that this was worthwhile. This is something that the American people needed to hear. Instead, CNN said, we're going to protect your feeble, stupid, retarded minds. Because if you're watching CNN, then you must be feeble-minded and stupid and retarded. So we're not going to even risk you listening to President Trump's lies about China or the deep state or stolen elections. No. You are too stupid. So we will tell you what you're supposed to think. We are CNN. Now, here's the funny part. It's been noted by a lot of people that President Trump did say that there were journalists, we assume that there were news outlets, that were paid by China to run negative stories about President Trump, starting as early as 2018, maybe even earlier than that. But apparently they have evidence showing it at least starting in 2018. Now, wouldn't it be funny if CNN was amongst those that were getting kickbacks from communist China? Now, it's going to be hard to prove. It's because China's not stupid. They don't just sit there and say, okay, let's write a check and send it to the CEO of CNN, send it to Caitlin Collins or her producers or anything. No, they're not like that. They do things a little bit smarter. But still, it's trackable. Money exchanges are trackable, regardless of how many layers you put between the source and the recipient. If you're diligent and if you know what to look for, you'll be able to find it. I do hope they find it. And not that I wish anything bad upon anyone, even at CNN, but I got to admit, not only would I be happy if they were amongst the recipients, I'd be happy that they got caught. I also wouldn't be very surprised.
Napoleon, don't be jealous that I've been chatting online with babes all day.
Whether you've been a prepper for a long time or maybe you're just getting started, you're just looking around and thinking how crazy it is, we usually cover the basics. You get your food, you get your water, you get your ammunition. Don't forget your ammo. You get your battery chargers, solar battery chargers, or whatever. But a lot of times I think people will forget their meds, okay? Whether it's chronic meds, antibiotics, I think a lot of people don't even realize that you can stock up on that stuff. They go to the doctor, they go to the pharmacy, and the pharmacist said, oh, here's your 2-month supply or whatever. Well, you can actually stock up on a lot of these meds by going to jdrucker.com/meds. You'll talk to the good folks over at Jace Medical. They can get you a 12-month supply of certain prescription drugs. They can get you emergency meds, all sorts of good stuff, things that you may or may not need, but it's always good to have it on hand because I guarantee you, even if you don't think you need it today, you might need it in the future. jdrucker.com/meds. Everything went wrong for James Tallarico this week after his Epstein-tied backer was revealed. Now, I want to be clear up front. This headline is a bit misleading. It's not inaccurate, but it is misleading for 3 reasons, maybe even 4 reasons, and I'll explain those here shortly, but let's get into the article itself. This comes to us from Town Hall by Joseph Chalfant. It's been a tough week for Democrat U.S. Senate candidate James Tallarico on the sexual abuse front, who's now battling with the public learning that his largest financial backer is listed in the Epstein files, is facing condemnation from an abuse victim's family for lying, and is refusing to condemn a political ally who consorts with a sexual predator. Now, just to say that he's somebody who was on the Epstein list, that's not that big of a deal. There's a lot of people who are innocent on the Epstein list. But Reid Hoffman is not one of them, apparently. Earlier Friday, it was revealed that Tallarico had been receiving millions from billionaire Epstein associate Reid Hoffman. Hoffman was featured prominently in the Epstein files for making trips to Jeffrey Epstein's island and to other Epstein residences, as well as exchanging gifts with Epstein with notes about, quote-unquote, the girls. According to FEC records, Hoffman has given more than $10 million to Tallarico or PACs supporting the progressive candidate. Meanwhile, Tallarico has gone as far as to claim that the, quote, the Epstein class has no place in Texas, in attempted smear attacks against his Republican opponent, Ken Paxton, despite being bankrolled by those very people. He's going after Epstein, pointing to something that has nothing to do with Epstein, trying to use that against Ken Paxton. Meanwhile, he's taken big money from an actual Epstein associate. This is what happens in 2026. We'll talk about that. But first, let's get to the second bad thing happening to Tallarico this week. The family of the sexual assault victim that Tallarico has attempted to politicize has come out to say that they are tired of being used after Tallarico falsely claimed to be in contact. Tallarico has used the case repeatedly on social media and in media hits as a means of accusing Paxton of producing a, quote, Epstein-style sweetheart deal. When Tallarico isn't accepting money from Epstein-affiliated billionaires or lying about sexual assault victims, he's campaigning with the sexual deviant Democrat Bobby Polito. Aside from his own numerous sexual scandals, Polito was exposed for defending his pedophile bandmate, who he brought on tour for years. Polito attempted to downplay sexual violence against children by stating that the molestation of the youth, and this is a quote, is not necessarily rape. Polito eventually brought the bandmate to a fundraiser concert hosted at a middle school. Tallarico has refused to condemn or rescind his endorsement of Polito. So four things. We'll just call it four. 3 reasons why it's misleading to think everything's going wrong for James Tallarico. Number 1, he's loaded with campaign dollars. They are going to sink as much money as possible. Democrats desperately want Texas. This would be just the hugest possible win for them, something they haven't been able to do in the 21st century. It was in the 90s the last time they won a statewide election in the state of Texas. And they want it. They feel it. And this is their best chance because they're going to sink $500 million or more into this. That's why people like Reid Hoffman are so important. Despite his actual Epstein connections, they think that, they're going to get away with it. Why? Because of reason number 2, that Tallarico is dangerous despite everything going wrong for him. He's talented. He's got a devil's silver tongue. He's good at this stuff. He sounds like a pastor. Technically speaking, I guess he sort of is a pastor. He's a seminarian. Of course, his heretical views are disgusting, anti-biblical, anti-Christian, anti-American, and of course anti-Texas. But hey, he's able to use the money behind him, combined with his ability to lie constantly, to just with a straight face tell bald-faced lies, which brings us to reason number 3 that he's so dangerous. In 2026, for whatever reason, I don't know if it's a spirit of stupidity, a spirit of Antichrist, a spirit of combined whatever it takes, but as we've seen, and if there is a silver lining to the DSA winning all of these primaries, it's that we've seen that the electorate, unfortunately, is stupid. I cannot sit here and say with any confidence that even in the great state of Texas, that people will not see through his lies. Not with that much money and that talented of a guy. This is their chance to win. And if we don't do something about it, if we don't step up immediately to expose him, to destroy him, politically speaking, then he's going to win. And that's not just bad for Texas, that's horrible for America because of the anti-biblical nonsense that he represents. This is a man who believes and who, quote-unquote, preaches that Christianity and Islam and Hinduism and Judaism and Buddhism, they're all just the same thing, just different perspectives pointing in the same direction. That makes him far more dangerous on Capitol Hill, even symbolically, than just having some progressive ideas. Which brings me to the fourth component, the supernatural component of why this guy is so dangerous. I'm not one who accuses people of being directly affiliated with Satan, with the demonic, unless I have a pretty darn good view that it's likely. And in this case, I think it's very likely. This guy gives off Barack Obama-style vibes. This guy has survived and thrived in an environment where, all things being equal, he should have already been toast. I mean, he pushes transgender ideologies. He pretends now to like meat when he was completely against meat in his climate change push. This guy has nothing that should make him appealing in Texas. And yet the polls show him winning. And I know I don't believe in polls either, but it shouldn't be this close. He should be nowhere near. Okay, if you take James Tallarico and throw $1 billion at his campaign, but he's running in, say, 2018 or 2016, that recently, he still gets obliterated because there was a semblance of truth still flowing through America and through the state of Texas. But today, DSA is winning. There's something is happening. Again, I'm not sure what it is, but something makes me truly, legitimately concerned that James Tallarico can win. So it's time to step up, Patriots. It's time to step up. This guy cannot win. This is the most dangerous politician out there right now. Yes, more dangerous than AOC, which her danger is going to come in 2028 if she is truly a danger. More dangerous than even Zohran Mamdani, because he's not coming at this from the anti-biblical stance that AOC and Mamdani have. He's coming at this wearing the clothes of false Christianity. And that, perhaps more than anything else, makes him truly dangerous.
Stay out of my territory.
House Democrats are suddenly mum when confronted by radical DSA plans to destroy key institutions, such as, like the U.S. Senate, for example. We have this article over at discernreport.com. It's actually a summary of an article by the Gateway Pundit. Margaret Flavin reported that House Democrats were suddenly mum, or they deflected when confronted with the Democratic Socialists of America's radical plans to abolish key U.S. institutions. DSA co-chair Gustavo Gordillo. Could you think of a better comic book name for a Marxist villain? I cannot. DSA co-chair Gustavo Gordillo struggled to explain basic differences between the Senate and the House, but he was willing to advocate abolishing the Senate, the Electoral College, and then to replace the presidency and the Supreme Court with bodies that are subordinate to Congress. Common sense ideas, right? Who needs the Constitution if you've got socialists? Representative Ro Khanna said he doesn't support it and hadn't read the proposal. Okay, weird. Representative Elon Omar Dodge, she just claimed that she's not a DSA member, so apparently she has to be a member in order to read what they put out to the public. Representative Pete Aguilar said he looks forward to working with all Democrats, very much hedging his bet, knowing that there will be DSA members in the Democrat caucus following this election. They have already won their primaries in deep blue districts where Republicans don't have a chance. So there will be Marxists in Capitol Hill next year. And so, according to Pete Aguilar, he's just like, yeah, can't we just all get along? But meanwhile, they're all sweating it. They're all sweating it. Okay? Like, even the most radical Democrats, I'm talking about the AOCs and the Ilhan Omars and the Ro Khannas, these aren't like moderates, but their ideas, their actions over the years appear to be moderate compared to what these radicals are doing, what these radicals are saying, what these radical Marxists want if they were ever to, God forbid, get strong at full power in the United States Congress. And it's not out of the question. As I've said many times, they don't need a majority of Democrats to be DSA members. They just need enough DSA members in order to sway the caucus, sway the Democrats if, again, God forbid, if Democrats do get control of the House, depending upon their margin, if their margin is not more than double the membership of the DSA that's in Congress, then the DSA will control Congress. That's just how the math works. This is very similar to what happened years ago when the House Freedom Caucus, the remnants of the Tea Party, when there were enough of those members to be able to sway. They didn't control, but they did sway the actions of the House when Republicans had control of it. When it was Speaker John Boehner, Speaker Paul Ryan, they had to, in many ways, they had to pander to the demands of the House Freedom Caucus. And it will be and the reason being is because there were just enough members of the Freedom Caucus to where if they voted as a bloc, they could stop legislation from moving forward if it didn't appease them, if they didn't get their cut of the legislation, so to speak, if they couldn't put in their goals, their desires. The DSA is going to do the same thing if Democrats are in control. If Democrats control the House, let's say they've got a 10 seat margin over the Republicans. That means that DSA only needs 6 members to essentially control, because the Democrats would need all 6 of those members in order to pass legislation. Or not, they wouldn't need all 6, but if all 6 of them voted as a block, and if let's say that they didn't want to do this piece of legislation for Hakeem Jeffries unless they defunded ICE, for example, well, Hakeem Jeffries would have no choice. If they have enough DSA members in Congress, because they have the will, they have the desire, they have what they would consider to be a fake mandate, but it's still a mandate that they would use, they would force a Democrat-controlled Congress to do exactly what they want. This is why, this isn't like, oh, it's just a small group. Folks, a small group, because of the way that we have this two-party system that's been infected. One of the parties has been infected. As a result, they have become extraordinarily dangerous. They must be stopped. Of course, I'm a humongous fan of stopping the Democrats, but I'm a bigger fan of preventing the DSA from getting a foothold within the Democrat Party, because at least with the stupid, idiotic socialist Democrats, which is what they are, the socialists are now the mainstream, right? The radical Marxist, communist, full-blown America haters, if they get control, we're toast.
It will shock you how much it never happened.
Jennifer Newsom stumbles and stammers when confronted with the facts. The DOJ probe was started under Joe Biden. I'm going to play the clip, and it's one of the cringiest things I've seen in a while. Not because she's obviously not very good at this, and she was thrown into a very, very favorable situation with MS Now, and yet she failed miserably. We have the article over at discernreport.com. This was a summary of Twitchy, where Just Mindy reported that Jennifer Newsom, wife of California Governor Gavin Newsom, was caught in a lie regarding her claims about women's rights and political attacks. Her statement was exposed as misleading after contradictory evidence emerged, drawing sharp criticism and mockery online. The incident highlights ongoing scrutiny of the Newsom family's public persona and history of embellished or false narratives. In other words, if your name is Newsom, you're almost certainly a liar, at least if you're somehow connected to to Nancy Pelosi. Critics slammed Jennifer Newsom, for hypocrisy, noting her privileged lifestyle clashes with her advocacy on women's issues. This lie fits a pattern of elite Democrats distorting facts to advance political attacks while shielding their own records. Social media users roasted the gaffe, amplifying calls for greater honesty from public figures. This story underscores a broader distrust in progressive elites who lecture Americans while engaging in deception. Now, brace yourselves, because this is their attempt to make the situation better. And what do Democrats do, especially Newsom's, to be clear, Newsom's and Pelosi's, this is their playbook. When they get caught doing anything, they turn it 100% of the time towards Trump. And they got just a little itty-bitty, smallest little softball pushback from MS Now, and she crumbled.
But is it true that this investigation started during the Biden administration?
I don't know the details. I do know that, Trump was coming after my husband back when Biden was president and Biden was running for the presidency, and I thought it was ironic. So, look, this is a fishing expedition, and I think what you're saying is that it's just been going on for a long time. My husband is Trump's most outspoken critic, and he's the GOP's biggest, I don't know. They've always targeted my husband.
I almost didn't make it through that. That is, poor girl, right? You got to feel bad for her. That they threw her to the wolves. I guess perhaps they thought, what is a very decent answer to the question. Don't even bring up Trump is probably the better way to put it. But if you have to, since you're a Newsom, then at least be ready for the guaranteed question that even very friendly, Democrat-friendly MS Now is going to ask when you start saying, Trump's going after my husband, Trump's going after my husband. When you know, and they know, and everybody knows, well, maybe not your average normie, but a lot of people know that this investigation, even though they're currently going after him, the actual investigation started under Joe Biden. The DOJ has been looking at both Gavin and Jennifer Siebel Newsom for a very long time. There's a reason why they've been looking at them for a very long time. As a matter of fact, there are many reasons, because there are many challenges, we'll say. I don't want to get sued, but there are many challenges with their history, the way they do business, the way they do politics, the way they live their lives. And for her to not be ready for the one basic no-brainer question, I put that on the campaign. And when I say the campaign, let's face it, everything about Gavin Newsom, everybody surrounding him, they are in 2028 presidential campaign mode. They already know they're not running for California anymore. California's toast. They're just trying to distance themselves from this failing state. And they thought it was a good idea to send Jennifer Siebel Newsom out there to try to, I don't even know what they were hoping to accomplish by it, but the only thing they accomplished was to highlight the fact that she is not ready for prime time.
Are you sure?
I'm positive.